Thanks for joining us tonight. We are with Brent Lynch from Hollow Leg. I didn't do an introduction because we just jumped right into it and went to it. Had a great conversation. Appreciate you guys checking it out. Thanks for tuning in. See ya. What's up, dude?
How we doing?
Fucking shitty trying to file my taxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Been
My
through
wife.
that already.
Yeah. We fucking had all our shit ready to go in February, and my dumbass was like, I got all this other stuff. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. And
Sure, sure.
now it's the fucking deadline. Um, so Reagan introduced us, but I listened to Hollow Leg. I really like the band. I think it sounds great. You want
Awesome.
to will you give me just a little bit of backstory so like we can have some
Sure,
conversation?
sure. Hollow Lake started around '09, 2010. Um, I had just moved down to Florida from Chicago and started jamming with a buddy of mine from Massachusetts where we grew up. And it was just a two-piece for the first few years. We did the first record as a two-piece, although Scott, our singer, and Tom, our bass player, were involved in the recording of that. So they kind of have always been in the band from the first record, even though they didn't technically play on the first record. Scott did some guest vocals on a couple tracks, but we were just a two-piece for the first record, and then toured on that record a little bit. And I was doing guitar with like a looper, so that when I did leads and stuff, I could have a little layering there, and between that and doing vocals, it was just a lot, and I blew my voice out a couple times, and it just really wasn't working for me anymore. So I think with the music that we were writing at the time too, it made sense to like add additional musicians to the mix. And these guys were friends of ours from their band Junior Bruce. We had done a bunch of shows together, and they were on kind of like an indefinite hiatus at that point, and we just asked them to join. And then it was that four-piece that we did: Abysmal, the second record, and then the third record, Crown. And then our drummer Tim decided to leave after we did some shows on the Crown cycle. And then we got our drummer John, who's been in the band since 2016. And we did the Murder EP with him, which was just two songs, and did a bunch of touring right around that time. And then we recorded the Civilizations record in like 2017, 2018. And then I decided to leave Florida for a few years. I moved out to Salt Lake City, and I was living in Utah for a few years, and COVID hit and that whole shebang. And um, one thing led to another, and we just decided to start up the band again. And I was going to move back to Florida, this time to Orlando, so I was even closer to the other guys. And yeah, it's been good. We've been working on a lot of music since I got back. 3 years ago at this point, but this will be our first proper release since I've been back. We decided we wanted to do like shorter format now, go with EPs versus LPs for a minute. We just like recording fewer songs, I think, at a time. Like a batch of 4 or 5 seems to be kind of our limit before we're like a little burnt. And that's always kind of seemed to be our weakness on
Like,
previous
fuck
releases. It's like,
this.
yeah, yeah. We get down to like the last couple tracks, and it's like, you know, we're just not really feeling it at that point. So we decided to go with the shorter format. We're going to do like a 2 EP situation where we're releasing this EP, but it's in tandem with a second EP that we're now recording, and then those will be combined later for an LP, we hope.
Okay. There's a band out of Cincinnati doing something similar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the name of the band is Blessed Black, and they're doing Seasons is the name
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
So essentially they write the first two have come out, volume one and volume two, and they've each been 3 songs, 3 songs each. And I think
Okay.
that the next two will also be 3 songs each. And their plan is, once all of those EPs are released, to release like an anthology, collective with all 4 of them out there.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's kind of where our heads are at too. Like, let's do these short form recordings, but like kind of make them make sense together too.
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost
Still,
like the whole concept album thing.
yeah, in a way. I mean, we're older guys now. Like we like the album the way that it was back in the day. Like the idea of like a well curated like group of songs that make sense is like a single entity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I miss those days.
Hmm.
I think that's really why I started getting into more like Doom and stuff, because it seems that in that genre, people do that. They're more into, there's a theme,
Right.
through the entire album, which is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, if you can do it, it's super cool. Sometimes it's hard to keep like a lyrical thread going. But you try to tie in all the music. And I know like when we did the Civilizations record, we actually had artwork first. Our buddy who does artwork for us like had something all ready to go, and it sort of sparked the entire idea for the record.
Oh,
So that was kind of an interesting approach as well, like to start with a visual concept.
yeah. Yeah, that's neat. I've talked to one other band that did that. Like, they essentially, I say visual concept, but he wrote all the lyrics for the album before the music was written,
Hmm.
sent sent the lyrics to the artist and said, "Here." And the artist came back with this badass art, and then they crafted the music around that.
Right. Right.
So it's really interesting to see how bands do things differently, right? Because everyone's got their own writing process. And you know,
Totally.
it sounds like with that album, with the artwork, that was a different a different avenue for you all.
Yeah. Yeah. That was totally different approach, but it worked. It helped us drive the lyrics along, because I know for me, like once the music part of it's done, I really don't have a lot left in the tank to give to lyrics, and I don't like um really like writing lyrics or think I'm any good at it. So it's not fun for me to really work on lyrics. Scott's much better at it, and when he's juiced up and it's flowing, and he's got some sort of lyrical concept, that always I think it always ends up better.
Fair. Yeah. I was surprised to hear so many people who don't sing for the band actually writing lyrics. I think
Hmm.
Kerry King and Slayer, Kerry wrote a lot of their, a lot of the lyrical concepts, which, I know he's a little fucked up in the head, but I always imagined, growing up, I always imagined Tom doing something like that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think it's always it's always cool to have like everything like a shared experience as a band. Like if you're all contributing on songwriting, you're all contributing on lyrics. It makes it more interesting, and it makes it, two heads are better than one, four heads are better than two scenario. So the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, band's kind of like a fucking Hydra, you know.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
When all the musicians work well together, it ends up being like a well-oiled machine. Like, oh man, that sounds great, but what if we did, oh yeah, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can. I mean, it can lead to you know, some butting ahead sometimes, but that's okay. Like, as long as in the end, everybody like respects each other's ideas, and um, in the end, the best ideas going to win out because, more than one person's going to see it the same way.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
um, but I love the collaboration. We've sort of like come to this point for our band anyway, where we call it the funnel, and it starts with one person, then goes to somebody else, and then it goes through the others, and it has to get like funneled out the other end before it becomes an actual song for us.
That's cool. Like that's a good way to like hash it out. Cause if you take an idea to one person and they're like, ah, no.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, it's done.
Exactly.
That's cool. So what got you into just playing music initially?
Just listening to music. I mean, just growing up in a house where I had at least one parent that was into music, and I know the other guys, had some sort of the same experience with their parents or listening to music in the house, and we all just grew up listening to a whole bunch of different stuff. And at some point, with metalheads, it's kind of across the board. Like at some point, you're going to pick up an instrument. Like we all want to get active, so to speak. Like we all want to like participate in playing and making this type of music. Um, and for us, it just became something we couldn't let go of. We'll do it forever.
Yeah. Well, I think most musicians are like that, right? You they're always going to play, might not always create
Hmm.
publicly, but they'll always
Right.
play, you know.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
What was there an artist when you were a kid that really jumped out, you know, common theme. I assume you're probably around my age. Um what are you, probably like early mid 40s?
Mid 40s. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like upper 40s. So most people our age are, you know, they I reference a lot to, you know, Metallica. You've got like
Hmm.
the thrash people, and then you've got like the hardcore people with agnostic front and all that
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I mean, I started with thrash for sure. I mean, I think when I was like little, I was in like the Doobie Brothers. And I still love the fucking Doobie Brothers, but like,
Yeah.
I was into stuff like that. And my mom listened to a lot of like Steely Dan, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Wonder. Like, we had good music in the house, and I still love that stuff now. But I think like then, like, came the Michael Jackson thing, and everybody sort of like, you know, was into that because it's awesome. And, you know, I think the first thing I found was like the thrash stuff that really spoke to me. So I mean, I'm a Metallica nerd. The rest of the guys will vouch for that for sure. I'm more of a Metallica fan than most Metallica fans. I'm in that club where I know things I shouldn't know about the band, and it's like it's an obsession to a point. But anyway, they were the band that made me want to start playing for sure. And then Anthrax as well. I sort of was gifted tapes of them when I was maybe like 10 or 11. And yeah, Anthrax, Metallica were the first. And then I learned that mm, I actually heard Black Sabbath for the first time because Anthrax covered Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And then I was like, wow, that's a really great song. And then dove down the Sabbath hole. And that's kind of been my focus as a guitar player ever since, because those riffs are insane.
Yeah. That's, you know, the good thing about Sabbath, or the main thing about Sabbath for me is those riffs are fucking timeless. Doesn't matter when you listen to them, they
Hmm.
still sound brand fucking new.
For sure. For sure. Agree 100%. It is most definitely timeless. The tone is timeless. It's like it's gonna influence guitar players till the end of time.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
question.
Fuck. And vocalists too, right? Like,
For sure. I mean, between both Ronnie and Ozzy, it was the best of the best.
yeah, and those two eras are completely different from one another,
Hmm.
which
Yep.
is, you know, it's really hard when you take such an iconic band and try to transition that front person. But I feel
Definitely.
like, they did it really well. And, full disclosure, I was a Dio solo fan, like
Hmm.
Rainbow, all that shit.
Sure.
What wasn't super into him in Sabbath until
Okay.
the last few years I've really been getting into it, and I can
I
appreciate a
I
lot
sort
more.
of I sort of did the same thing. Like for me, Ozzy Sabbath was it when I was younger, and then all of a sudden it like switched, and now I probably listen to Dio Sabbath more than I do Ozzy Sabbath. But definitely Dio solo over Dio Sabbath. I agree
Yeah,
with that as well. I was lucky. I got to see Dio open for Maiden in late '90s. Some point, it was like one of the uh, Blaze Bailey tours,
yeah,
and they played at Aragon or Riviera in Chicago, and I caught that. It was killer. CDO. That was the
yeah.
only time I got to see him.
I'm jealous. I never got to saw D, see, I never got to see Dio. And he was always he was a mainstay when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Um, because his voice, there's not another voice like his,
For sure, for sure.
anywhere.
Yeah, he was the best.
Yeah,
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
fucking phenomenal. Uh, right on. So I I want to talk about this Metallica nerd ship a little bit.
Okay.
How deep do you go in it?
Um, I'm not as insane about it as I used to be, but like when I was in my early to mid teens, it was pretty obsessive. I was going to see them like constantly, and like any sort of trivia about the band, still probably know most of it, but I don't know like how up to date I am at this point. But I still follow the band. Every release they put out, I'm all over it. And I'll still try to get to see them anytime I can. I got to see them in Utah like a few years ago when they were still touring Hardwired, and it was in an arena, and I'm really partial to that. Like I try not to go to the stadiums if possible, but it seems to be like all that they play now is the
Yeah.
stadiums and the big festivals. So
Yeah, I mean,
haven't seen them in a couple years at this point, but still try to see them any chance I get, and I think they still kill it like on a serious level, like m- better than most bands.
yeah. So I saw him in the '90s, was not super impressed, and I grew up, real heavy Metallica nerd.
Hmm.
And I was the guy that at the Black album I was like, like I don't know, and I kind of drifted away, and I still, when they release something, of course I'm gonna listen to it because
Right.
I still love them. And then I saw him. I've only seen him twice, and the second time I saw him was Louder Than Life a couple of years ago,
Okay.
and um, I gave it, I gave it a fair shake. Like I'm gonna go in with no preconceived notions, and they played, and I was frankly astounded with their set at,
Yeah.
they're at fucking 60,
Yeah. Yeah. They're killing it. As far as I'm concerned, they're the best. They're the only ones to have gone that long and that heavy. Like Sabbath took breaks and came back. Slayer's not doing it anymore. Anthrax is still doing it, and they're doing it at an incredible level too. I think they still will, but they don't have all like. I mean, they have mostly the original guys, but not all. Um, so yeah, a little bit different scenario there. But Metallica, I think, is just
Yeah.
they deserve the accolades that they get as far as I'm concerned. They're awesome.
Yeah, I agree. They're fucking awesome. They got to that level for a reason, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that
And the
them and
sounds that they generate, the tones, like everything just to me, to my ears, still sounds impeccable.
well, and the cool thing is um as much as a lot of people myself included, right at the Black Album, we're like, I don't know, it's too different. They've always evolved through their entire career,
For
and
sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
always pushing boundaries, which is nice to see. And they've still got so much fan support.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, people talk about the first four records, but I mean, Kill 'Em All is vastly different than Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets is like, to me, that record should be used as like the model for every heavy record ever. It's unbelievable and it's untouchable. Like, in my opinion, like the songs on that record are next level and beyond. I mean, still to this day, I'm just amazed by how they put those songs together. And they were young when they made that record.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
like,
and you look at, if we look at Ride the Lightning and Master, they were both heavily influenced from Cliff,
hmm hmm
who at
totally,
that, like him alone was such a stellar fucking musician,
100%.
you know.
Yeah, I would have. We were robbed of him being able to give us more music, but I'm also a child of the 90s, and like my Metallica was the 90s Metallica. I never got to see Cliff, so um you know I first heard Masters, but I mean Injustice for All was already out at that point, so that was kind of my entry point. And maybe, I don't know, maybe because I'm like right on the cusp age wise, where like the Black Album hit hard. And
Yeah.
I was like, that did it for me. That put me over the edge. The Black Album is like still to this day one of the most important records to me.
Okay.
Um, but then, you know, through the 90s, there was so much good music coming from like all directions. The alternative side, the hardcore side, the punk side, like all that stuff was just crushing during the 90s. So for them to just give us Load and Reload was kind of like,
Yeah.
we've had some better records, during that period. But I think I like them now more than I did then, for sure.
I think a lot, and I think a lot of people still talk shit about Load and Reload, but I'll bet a lot of those shit talkers go back and listen to songs off of them because,
Oh,
you
there's some
know,
great songs.
yeah, although the albums as a whole don't like stack up, there are some really good fucking songs on those albums.
Totally, totally. I'm of the club that believe that that should have been one record. Had it been one record, I don't think anybody would talk shit about it. I think it would have been solid as any of their records. But they were expanding their palette, so they did what they did.
Yeah, going
But
through, I think they were dealing with a bunch of, internal shit at that time too.
yeah, I think it was a lot of transitional stuff for sure.
Yeah,
And the music climate was changing. There wasn't a lot of metal bands making like a big splash at that time. It was all like in the alternative and punk
yeah,
um, kind of arena. Warp Tour was huge then, and Lollapalooza was still doing their thing, and those were massive. Those scenes were massive.
yeah. I through through a large part of the '90s, I listened to a lot of punk because that was, I don't know, it was just an avenue that I went down.
Yeah,
So I
and
didn't,
skateboarding. I don't know if you were a skateboarder, but as skateboarders, we were way into that shit as
yeah,
kids. That was a couple trips to California really did me in, and I got way into like all that Southern California pop punk stuff. Still to this day, a couple of those bands are like favorites of mine. Like
okay.
Lagwagon, I love.
Oh,
Strung Out,
love
I love.
Strung Out still, like they're a good band.
They
Uh,
are.
I really, the two for me were No Effects and Rancid.
Okay.
Like
I
that.
never got into No Effects, but I definitely got into Rancid, and um, I love No Use for a Name too. I think they had some like really really awesome songs.
Yeah, yeah, New Fans good. Really, there was such in that era of punk, there was such a lot of really good bands that came out of
hmm
there. You
Totally.
know, bands that I still fucking listen to today, and it's, Funny. I was looking for something to do Saturday night, and we went to Portal to go. There were some bands playing. I'm like, oh, let's go check it out. Well, it was a fucking punk show. I kind of knew, but I didn't really know, and it really reminded me of that era of punk. Like you go and they're crazy. There's all these kids bouncing off each other and having a good
Mhm.
time. I was like, man, I fucking
Yeah.
I kind of miss that.
No phones up in the air.
Right. No, everyone's there having a good fucking time.
Nice,
It,
nice.
it
Love
was,
that.
yeah, me too. Uh, man, we fucking went off on a good tangent there. Uh, so back to Hollow Leg. You
Yep.
guys are Doom. Um, what what Doom bands like influence your sound, do you think?
I mean, we're Sabbath heads, but beyond that, I mean, we like things here and there. I don't know if any of us are like our singer Scott's probably the most like involved with like doom bands and like the doom scene and like kind of stays up to date on what bands are good in that genre more than any of us. Um, I don't know. I think like it's weird how the classifications lie. I think you know some of the sludge stuff was a big influence on us. Like I Hate God, we love that. We love that stuff. And then like more stonery kind of like Caius and the desert bands.
Yeah.
The band Dozer from Sweden, we love them. Collectively, I think it's more some of like the bigger names in the genre, the Corrosion of Conformities and the Monster Magnets and bands like that that really kind of blew us into this lane as far as like what we play. But really, it just all comes back to Sabbath, and like that's what I started doing when I started playing guitar. Same with our bass player Tommy, like kind of the same thing. We started playing guitar to Sabbath stuff, so that's sort of how the style remains.
Yeah.
I've dabbled into other areas, but it's like for as much as I love bands like Lagwagon, it's like I can't really play that stuff. I've tried, and it's not like I could do it on drums, but as a guitar player, it just doesn't come naturally. This type of stuff comes naturally.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. It's it's completely different styles of playing.
Right. I think a lot of influence might have come from like the grunge stuff too, because
Mm.
they were kind of sabbed out in a way. They were all really Melvins influenced, and bands like Soundgarden and Alice in
I
Chains, and
I hate God.
yeah, exactly. They're Melvins. It's all Melvins based.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the Melvins and Sabbath.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Funny talking to Jimmy and Gary, like they're both like, oh yeah, fucking Melvins, best band ever. They totally influenced and I have to agree. Melvins are a great fucking band, and
totally,
they deliver every time you see them live, you know?
100%, 100%. Yeah, I've seen them. I don't know, at least 12 to 15 times at this point in my life, and the first time I saw them was Houdini era, and they were
Mm.
opening for Primus, and I had never really heard them. I knew who they like. I'd heard of them, but I'd never really listened to them before, and everybody I was with, I remember just being like, "This sucks," and I was like, "This is the best thing I've ever fucking heard. I love this band." So, that sort of won me over seeing them on that tour for sure, and I've seen them a bunch since. They're great, and I think probably my favorite was when they did the Big Business, like two drummers, everybody singing. That sound was insane. That was like such a big sound. It sounded so great, and I love that they just like kind of go through different flavors of the band and do different things. It's
Yeah.
great.
Again, it's another band that is ever evolving, you
Hmm.
know, like they have a sound, and when a song plays, oh yeah, that's the fucking Melvins.
for
but
sure.
the song structures are, I feel like the song structures on each album are so different from the last album.
Yeah, definitely. They play around. I don't think they ever want to repeat what they did on the last record, and that's awesome. That's
Yeah. It's great. And it's hard for a band to fucking to do that and to keep a fan base, you know?
yeah.
So often someone changes like Metallica and everyone's like, "Oh, they're fucking sellouts, they're this, they're that." And it's like,
Well, I think I could compare it to like Alice in Chains when they put out Sap. They said that they did that specifically so that they could do whatever they wanted for the rest of their career. And I think that's such a smart way to approach it. And I think the Melvins did the same thing. They never sold any one idea. They were like, we're gonna do what we do, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, people dig it.
My favorite Alice in Chains is Jar of Flies.
I love that record.
I
Love
could
that record.
fucking listen to it every fucking day for the rest of my life and never get
Yeah,
tired of it.
yeah, I agree. It's great.
We had
I
such
agree.
I feel like the 90s produced so many good bands, but realistically, like every decade has a lot of really good fucking bands.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Did you ever listen to Mad Season?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I get that one on vinyl.
Me too.
Yeah,
You,
love that record.
do you have the Live at More Theater?
I had the DVD back in the day. Um, now it's on YouTube, so you can watch it there. But I didn't have like just an audio version of it. I just had the video live performance.
You can get it on vinyl.
Oh, okay, cool.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a sick show.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, it's like that was such I remember hearing River of Deceit for the first time and that was like, "Ooh, what's that?" I think it
Yeah.
was sandwiched between like Sponge and Silverchair or something on the radio and I was like, "Man, that's fucking cool."
hmm
God, we're old.
yeah.
So with Hollow Leg, how many albums do you guys have out now?
We have four proper LPs, one EP, and this will be our second EP.
Okay.
So from 2010 until present.
That's a pretty good time to, release every couple of years.
Yeah, we were averaging like once every 3 years for a while there, until I moved away, and now this will be 5 years since our last release.
Okay. Yeah, but this is kind of a double, right?
Yes, yeah. I don't know whether both will see release this year. More than likely, we'll do one this year and one like early 2025.
Okay. Oh, are you guys releasing them on vinyl?
When we do the combo two EPs, I'd like that to be a vinyl release, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
That's the plan though.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, we've been fortunate. We've got three of the four LPs are available on vinyl still.
Hell yeah.
Just the first record is the only one we never pressed vinyl for, and I think it's actually like a little too long. You learn a lot about like lengths of records when you're pressing vinyl, and like it's just one more thing to keep in mind when you're curating a record and putting songs together. It's like this group is this many minutes and this group is that many minutes, and this can be side A and this can be side B, and you know we actually have two records that we released where the vinyl order track order is different than the digital track order.
For length reasons.
Yeah, so don't
I
want
mean
to compromise. Don't want to
that
compromise the audio.
yeah, that's kind of neat though, because it makes people go, "Oh shit, now I got to go buy this because it's a little bit different," right?
Hopefully, but
Hopefully.
yeah, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a different experience, I guess, too. It weirds me out sometimes because like I'll go back and listen to one of those records and be like, oh wow, that song's next. I thought it was this song was next. So I even forget that that is that way.
Yeah. Hmm. That would probably fucking weird me out too. Like, I'm so ready for this song, and then you're like, oh, what
Yeah.
just happened? You know?
Yeah, you're used to the track order you're used to, you know.
Yeah. So what's it like being back in Orlando?
Loving it. Loving it. You know, the summers are brutal, but that's Florida life. Um and yeah, you know, everyone I love in the world seems to live in Florida, so it made sense to move back. My family, my immediate family anyways, is in the Jacksonville area, which is where I used to live. But when we moved back, we wanted to not do that again and try Orlando instead. And it's been so much better. We love it here.
Right on. And you guys aren't you're not too far from Tampa, what, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe?
Yeah, yeah, right in that area, depending on traffic, which there always is quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially I guess depending on time of day, right?
Um, Not so much. It seems like it's kind of just all the time.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that route in particular, the Orlando to Tampa route, like especially going through the Disney area. Um, yeah, it's gnarly.
Yeah, fuck. How far are you guys from Disney?
Myself and our drummer John live closer to Orlando, and we're probably like 35, 40 minutes from the mouse.
Okay.
The other guys live in DeLand, which is where our studio is, where I'm at right now. That's like closer to Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach area.
Okay.
So about 45 minutes from Orlando proper.
Rockville this weekend?
I think it's in May at some point, like maybe a few weeks from now.
Oh yeah, maybe it's the first weekend in May or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the dates. I know it's in May though,
Yeah.
which
Saw
is
someone just posted something about like going to Rockville, got some big fancy condo. I'm like, whatever, you're there for the festival.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of a circus down there. I got to go to one of the days last year. One of my buddies was there working with one of the bands and got me a pass. So I went to one of the days and saw Mars Volta and Deftones and um, who else played that day? Tool played that day, but we didn't stay. And we saw Coheed and Cambria. That was really good. I had never seen Coheed and Cambria before, and I was super impressed.
Surprisingly good show. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, it was really good. Our drummer John's a big fan, and so I was, watching with someone who knows all the material and stuff, and he was, you know, they're a great band. They put on a hell of a show.
yeah, when they toured with Mastodon, I went and I was not I'm a Mastodon fan. I was not a Coheed and Cambria fan. I never really gave him a chance. I just, what I heard never struck my fancy. So I was like, yeah, whatever. We saw the show here in Louisville, and then I wanted to take my daughter up to Detroit to go see him again. Because I'm like, you're gonna fucking love Mastodon. So we go up there with my best friend and his wife, and he takes his oldest son. I take my daughter, and Mastodon play, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And Coheed came, was taking the stage, and he's like, man, they're so good live. Like this dude nails it, and he's going on. I'm like, all right, like that's cool. And I watched, and by the end of the show, I was like, holy fuck, dude, you were right. Like really, really good live.
Yeah, 100%. I was not a like. I mean, I had heard them and I thought it was pretty good, but live it was a whole other situation. I was really impressed. It's
Yeah.
good shit.
Yeah. Very, for me, very different from what was recorded, um,
Hmm.
as far as, what it made you feel.
Yeah, for sure.
So are there other bands that really, that you saw live, that just blew your fucking mind?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I got to see Pink Floyd on the Division Bell tour, and that was a real game changer for me. That was an insane concert, and that was a big stadium show. But that was incredible. And then second time I saw Metallica, I got to see them a few times on the Black Album cycle, but one time in particular with the Snake Pit set up, and I was like right next to the stage, and it was just insane. Like that just blew me away. That was like next level concert. I mean, that was like it. That's probably to this day the best show I've ever seen. But there's been a bunch. I've seen a lot of great shows over the years. Grew up in Boston, got to go to all the hardcore shows in the '90s in Boston, see some great bands there. So yeah, I've been able to see some really good ones. I can't think of any like extraordinary other than the Pink Floyd and the Metallica show that were just next level, but definitely seen some great shows.
The Pink Floyd it makes me jealous. I never saw them live, and growing up, God, when I don't know, I was probably 9 or 10, the Wall kind of had a resurgence, and people were like,
Mhm.
getting all weird.
Right.
I would have really fucking enjoyed seeing them.
Yeah, it was if I remember correctly, it wasn't even something I was like planning on going to. Like I think I got a ticket from someone who I gave a ride to, and that's how I ended up going. And it changed everything for me. Like I was, you know, a tertiary Pink Floyd admirer at best at that point, and then after that show, I was full on Pink Floyd fan for sure.
Hell yeah. Well, like, again, tremendous musicians across the board. And then
Hmm.
you throw, Gilmore's unique phrasing through the whole thing, and it just ah
His guitar sound is untouchable. It's
yeah.
amazing. Sounds great. I think
Oh,
it was the first of several that um, made me want to get several delay pedals. It was the first of those bands to do that for me, for sure.
hell yeah. Yeah. I always wanted to play like him, and every time I pick up a guitar, I'm like, I got these like weird I like my fingers don't work the way I want them to. So I'm like, I can do this, and no, I can't do this. All right.
It's
So
not easy.
no, it's not. It's a lot of practice, and frankly, I don't have the focus to do it anymore. Fuck, getting old. Too much going on.
For
Um,
sure.
so when for the Hollow Leg EP, when do you expect a release?
May 3rd, it's coming out.
Okay.
Digital only for now. And but yeah, May 3rd. There's a single out currently, and then 5 songs, May 3rd.
Okay. So the single is Poison Bite.
Correct.
That's a really good fucking song.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I I right before you got on, I was like going through your Spotify stuff, and I'm like, God, like I listened before we talked about like, oh, let's get you in, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, they're fucking good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, are you guys with the release? Are you going to do any touring or anything like that?
Just some Florida shows planned at this point. I'm sure we will get back out there at some point, but nothing planned. We're just sort of focused on getting the second EP rolling, and once that's locked up, we'll probably do more touring. I would imagine, because then we'll have the two EPs under our belt, and hopefully like a combo uh, dual EP release as well. So we'll have a lot to share with people at that point.
Hell
So
yeah.
maybe like in a year from now, we'll probably be
Okay.
out there to a greater extent. But we're planning on definitely plan out this summer, but it'll be in the southeast.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll just have to get Reagan to take a trip to the southeast with me.
Hey, go for it.
Yeah.
The summer's great. It's not
Yeah.
hot at all.
we we made that mistake a few years ago. My wife's like, "We're gonna go to Disney," and I was like, "Okay, when?" She goes, "July," and I'm like, "What?
No,
Like
awful.
we're going to Florida in July?" She's like, "Yeah, it'll be great." I'm like, "No, it won't. It
No,
it really won't. It's gonna be miserable for everyone," and it was fucking miserable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Insane humidity. It's the start of hurricane season. It's just I just sort of close my eyes and bite down like from July until October. It's like I always tell people it's like Florida in the summer is like Norway in the winter.
mm,
You don't go outside. There's a lot of suicides. It's like it's just miserable.
yeah.
But we live in it. It is what it is.
It's like walking through pea fucking soup all the time.
Yeah, it's like living in a butthole for 3 months out of the year. But I mean, like you take the good with the bad because from November through end of April, it's gorgeous. So we really don't have much to complain about not having a brutal winter.
Right. Yeah. And I'm at that age now where I'm tired of the fucking winters. I want to go more south, and
Yeah,
I keep saying, let's go to Florida. And she's like, but the summers suck. Yeah, the summers suck, but the winters don't. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's a trade off.
yeah.
You know? The people that can afford to have houses in the north and the south, they're the big winners. The ones that can do the summers up north and the winters in the south.
Yeah.
That, that's the dream.
That that is definitely the fucking dream. Like, live where it's 70 degrees all the time.
Yeah, yeah, or San Diego, someplace like that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I want to live in San Diego.
I agree, but the weather's great.
The weather. Yes, that's fair. Um, what other bands do you play in multiple bands currently?
I don't. I'm 100% hollow leg, but Tommy and Scott both are still active with Bloodlet, and yeah, and John and I are just doing hollow leg right now.
Okay.
But all the guys have collectively played in other bands, a bunch during the tenure of hollow leg. Junior Bruce is um, up, like they're active and not active, and they kind of go back and forth. So those guys are doing Junior Bruce and Bloodlet and Hollow Leg most of the time.
That's a lot of shit to
Yeah, yeah,
keep straight.
yeah. For me, it's enough doing one band and like having a full-time job and a family and all that stuff. It's like that's pretty much all I can handle. But they do it, and they love doing it. So it's a labor of love. When you're in your 40s, it's like you're not doing this anymore for any sort of expectation of anything on the back end. It's simply because we love doing it, and it's
Yeah.
it's super fun. It's still one of the most joyous things in my life, and I can you know say that's true for the other guys because that's why we still do it. We love it.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine after doing it for so many years, all your rock star dreams are kind of okay,
Yeah, I mean
we're not Metallica,
it,
you know?
I think maybe growing up in hardcore bands too that sort of like helped us not have that perspective. Like we sort of just did this because we love doing it, and we still love getting in the van and going to wherever to go play shows, and we'll drive several hours to do so, and it's still as important to us as it was when we were younger.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point because we look at more of the punk and hardcore scenes, and there weren't at least way back there weren't those bands that you could look up to and go, oh man, that's a stadium band. I want to be like that.
Right.
Or it was you lived in the van and it was stinky, and you were in your all ages club that you could pack 150 people into, and
Yeah.
no one showered in a month. So it's
I mean, people went to shows and bought merch back then. That was a big difference. Now that's not as much of a thing as it was back then. Although it seems like the last couple of years, shows have gotten a lot better. Like people are coming out a lot more.
post
But for a
COVID.
while there, I think people got complacent, just like watching bands on YouTube or whatever. Or I don't know why they weren't coming to shows, but it just seemed like less frequent that people were going to shows. I know I've been less frequent about going to shows. Certain, I guess maybe that's an old man thing too. Like it's like if it's not at House of Blues, I'm not going. It's like I want it to
Yeah.
sound great. I want a place to stand. I want access to the bar, like access to cleaner bathrooms, and like I don't know. I guess you just get to a point where that's more of like a uncomfortable night out. No,
Now, not me. Like
no,
I'm like, where are you playing at? So in May, I went out to LA to see Mr. Bungle, the Melvins, and Spotlights play.
sweet.
It's like fourth. It was at the Palladium, so 4,000
Yep,
seats, and then um, Spotlights came through Louisville, and it was 50. It was 100 people packed into a 50-person fucking room,
nice.
and I'm like, man, we all fucking stink right now, but this is so great.
Yeah, yeah. No, I still love that too. But there's something to be said for I don't know, just a little bit of a little bit more comfort, I guess. But those shows pack out too, so
Yeah.
it's not like it's
Well,
any different.
especially post COVID, right? Like I think
Yeah,
I think you have a good point, because it was leading up to COVID. There were people that didn't they weren't going out to shows near as much, and then you can't go to a show, and everyone's like, but I want to go to a show.
for sure.
So as soon as it opened back up, I mean, it's like, the floodgates really opened. A lot of tours, a lot of really good tours started happening, and a lot more people started coming out, which is
Definitely. And a resurgence of like a lot of older bands too that maybe haven't played out for a while. I mean, I saw Sunny Day Real Estate post COVID and I'd never seen them before. And they're a band again. I got to see like Quicksand and Helmet and um
how fucking great is that?
yeah, it's killer. And yeah, it's just been a bunch of bands like on the comeback and doing it again. So it's killer.
Yeah. Orange 9mm just got back together.
I saw that. I saw that. That's cool. I
Yeah.
saw them a bunch back in the day.
Yeah. That was one of the other bands I never really saw. Through the 90s, I didn't go to a lot of shows. I spent my time, really, I was bouncing cities between Nashville, St. Louis, and Detroit.
Okay.
Um, but, running that circle, not going to a lot of shows. And then probably early 2000s, I started hitting a lot of shows. Never saw Orange 9mm, and my buddy Chris Enriquez is playing for him. So I'm like,
Okay. Cool.
fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. Nice.
It's nice seeing people.
Guitar.
No, he's playing drums.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
Nice seeing
Awesome.
people who play music. Like Orange 9mm was one of his favorites,
Yeah.
back then. So now he's like, oh, I'm a fucking part of the band. This is so cool.
Sweet. Sweet. That's awesome.
Is there a band that, aside from Metallica, aside from, let's say, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, that you'd love to go do a string of shows with?
Oh my God. Uh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess some like someone we would tour well with maybe would be like a High on Fire or yeah, Mastodon would be awesome. Um, those two kind of come to mind first. Um, yeah, yeah, those would
Okay.
probably be like kind of top like wish list bands that I would love to play some shows with.
Great. I think two great choices.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think for us it would be um, good pairing
yeah. Yeah, for sure. The sounds would mesh well together.
for sure.
Super excited to go see I'm gonna go see High on Fire here in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna miss them. I'm gonna miss them here in Orlando. I'm gonna be out of town when they're in town, so unfortunately missing that one.
damn it. Yeah, the rig
Always a good time. Always a
yeah,
good time.
sucks getting old and you're like, oh man, this show's great. Like actually I'm going to Detroit to see them. And while like I think they play the 17th the next month in Detroit, and there's like four shows in Louisville that night. And
Oh
then
God.
the next night there's another two or three, and I'm like, oh man, shit. Like
Yeah.
so many good shows.
Well, that's great. At least there's a lot of stuff coming around. It kind of sucks that the Rockville thing happens here now because a lot of bands that ends up being their Florida show, so they don't like come to Florida. They just do that as their stop, like
Mm.
bigger names.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Well,
You
it's
get out to the festival, I guess.
it's getting that way with Louder Than Life here, you know.
I'll bet. Yeah, I'll
Um,
bet. Same thing.
yeah. So now if we want to go see, some of the bigger bands, it's Nashville, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and you're like,
Hmm.
take what you can get. But man, I'd rather have it right in my backyard.
For sure. For sure.
Um, what do you hope comes of these two releases for you guys over the next year?
Um, more shows, and just getting hopefully, you know, this new direction. It's not like real far fetched for us, but it is, kind of a fresh take on what we do, and hopefully that resonates with more people, and more people get into the band, and we see more faces at the shows in coming years. So that's all we can do is hope that it gets to more people.
That's fair. That is a fair statement. Well, I hope more people come to your shows too. Um,
Thanks.
I really would like to see you guys come to Louisville because I
Yeah, we'd love to. We'd love to come through. Um, I think we only had one opportunity I can remember, and we had to cancel. We had to pull off of a tour because, like halfway through, because we had to head home for a family situation. But that was the only time we were ever booked in Louisville. Or I don't know. I don't know. We don't get much opportunity to travel the Midwest for some reason. So um, I definitely want to make that a priority
yeah,
for
I
sure.
think I think the region here has a very explosive like doom scene.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of great bands for
Yeah,
sure. Indie, Chicago, like um, I don't know about Louisville so much, but yeah, that whole region seems to get
yeah,
quite a bit of good doomy bands for sure.
yeah. Because we got nothing better to do. All the music's written in the fucking winter, and it sucks.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's definitely you know the spirit of that type of music for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure. All right, Brent. I greatly appreciate you taking time out to come hang out and
Thank
chat
you.
with me.
Yeah, sure.
I will edit out that part, and then I'll put this out probably here in like 2-ish weeks.
Okay,
All right,
sounds good. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate
cool.
it.
Have a great night.
Too.
Thanks. See
Cheers.
ya.